SBN, Sports Business Now. SBN is a division of Row 27, the digital sports marketing company, celebrating 5 years of creating TV spots, intro videos, and microsites for over 150 teams. See our work at row27.com. And by FanMaker, digital marketing tools for sports teams, featuring FanMaker Rewards, the most comprehensive and popular fan loyalty and reward system. Learn more about our apps at fanmaker.com. SBN Live.
Hey sports fans, welcome to SBN Live episode 46. My name's Max Huber. I'm your host today. This is where sports marketing and technology meet. Joined today by Row 27 guru Jason Cole over to my left. And pleasure to bring into the studio from Minnesota United FC, Brad Baker. Jason, how are things today?
Things are doing great. Happy we have Brad on the show, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, speaking of Brad, how are things? And tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Things are good. It's snowing a little bit outside, which is a little bit of a bummer. Quick 30-second background, began working in sports television at NFL Network while I was living in Los Angeles. Went to work for the Washington Redskins from there, won an Emmy Award while working with them. Went down to University of Georgia, started a video department there for 4 years. And then back in the spring, Minnesota United FC, they were Minnesota Stars at the time, came calling and came up here, and we're trying to build something awesome in not just lower division soccer, but elevating ourselves to some of the best soccer clubs in the world.
Yeah, and we'll talk quite a bit about Minnesota United. And Jason, you notice how we dropped the Emmy plug in there?
Yeah. Well, how can you help it? I was thinking that you would, man.
I don't have one yet, so. I'm just waiting. I'm just jealous. But, yeah, you mentioned Minnesota United. Right now, one of the premier teams in the NASL. The NASL expanding. We're going to see Indy 11. We're going to see Ottawa and Virginia next season alone. And then after that, Jacksonville and Oklahoma City. You've got to feel good from a perspective of the Minnesota United to see a lot of these teams come in some pretty great markets.
Yeah, so, the league was the league back in the 70s and 80s. Everybody remembers Pele and the New York Cosmos. Yeah. So that's the North American Soccer League, if you're unfamiliar with the league. It ended up being kind of run into the ground amidst some weird financing kind of deals. 3 years ago, they started the league back up, and some teams have kind of come and gone. They got a commissioner in. His name's David Peterson. He was the commissioner of NFL Europe, a couple other big organizations. And he's actually done a really good job of stabilizing things and creating a quick expansion. The U.S. Soccer Organization, I forget what they're called, but they kind of give out these designations, and we're kind of designated as a second division league. But I think what David Peterson and everybody else around the league says is, this is a different structure than MLS. This is a different product, and maybe we're not a second division league. Maybe we can become a competing league. So they've done a great job of looking at markets that maybe don't have a team right now and saying, this is a place we want to set and start our roots as a league. And then it helped that back in the summer, the New York Cosmos rejoined the league. And that brought a lot of publicity back, and they're actually doing a European tour right now, playing some clubs over there. So, it's all good publicity for the league, and it's going to just make all our clubs that much stronger.
Yeah, Jason, any comments on that?
Well, yeah, I think one thing that gets lost on a lot of Americans is you have 92 clubs just in the United Kingdom. It's like having 92 clubs in Texas, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you might not have the same fanaticism in the States as you do over there, but you definitely have a market share that can easily promote 50, 60 clubs throughout this country. So the structure of having 20 teams in 20 cities, and like you do in the NFL or NBA, or 30 teams, if you look at either one of those, I guess, just doesn't really fit. There's so much more room, and it'll be interesting to watch soccer evolve, since we don't have relegation or any of those types of things connected in between people.
Yeah. I think the other thing is soccer's kind of got this like counterculture thing happening in the United States as well. A lot of people that are supporters of soccer clubs don't like the other sports. And I'm not sure totally what the genesis of that is, but I think when you look at the potential for the sport, there's so much more room for growth than there is with the other sports. Football, for instance, is just seeing double-digit percentage drops in youth participation every single year, whereas soccer is doing the exact opposite in growth. So you're going to have a situation in 10 or 15 years where talent pools for the other sports are dropping, and soccer has just grown in that interest. So it's a very interesting time right now for soccer in this country, because I think, for years everybody's kind of been waiting to see what would happen here, and now it truly is on the cusp of an explosion in popularity.
Yeah, and one of the things you guys are doing on your end to increase the popularity of soccer in Minnesota and of the team yourself, you're using a lot of social media, a lot of technology. You've got stoppage time, coaches commentary. What's it like for you to produce these, and have you seen a lot of people kind of using that to gather information about the club?
I think so in terms of the video side, I think what we're seeing is a lot more hits than misses, but we're still kind of in experimental phase. When I came into the team, we had 5 weeks to go from an empty room to full broadcast on the web and doing web videos, which is an extraordinarily quick turnaround. So as we've kind of gone through this year, we've had no time to prepare. It's kind of been us sitting around the room and what would be awesome to do this week. And sometimes we come up with a great idea. So one of the ones right now is something called stoppage time. It's basically another form of 60 seconds with a player that you've seen with many other clubs. But we've not had a chance to elevate these guys in terms of celebrity out in the public yet. And this is our first chance to do that. So that's one of the things we're trying to do is, elevate these guys to where fans recognize them outside of just the club. In terms of social media, it's a grassroots effort. You're taking a franchise that a very, very small percentage of people knew about. Market research when I came into the club showed that only 3% of the population of the Twin Cities even knew a pro team existed here. So, and then how many of that were actually supporters of the club that were routinely going to games and interacting with the club? So we've got things like we formed this group called the Loon Squad. It's basically entry-level employees and interns. And we send them out with like a whiteboard and with funny questions on the whiteboard. And we just go up to people on the street and we take pictures and post vines. And it's this very much grassroots effort to just kind of get the word out there, but show that we're an organization that wants to interact with fans. You look at a team like the Timberwolves or the Vikings, they're too big at this point to do a whole lot of interaction with the fans. We, as a small organization right now, that's one of our benefits is we can go out, we can interact with the fans on a video side, on a social media side, and really pull them in as we continue to grow.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. I was at a bar earlier this year. Surprise, Max is in a bar.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, and I actually saw, and this was before, even I had met you, Brad, and I saw a guy in a Minnesota United hat, and he had a scarf on, and it wasn't even soccer season. And I was just like, that's really cool to see that, growing up a soccer fan, to see the efforts that you guys are putting forward. So the social media efforts are there. I mean, it's great to see that. And one of the other cool things is a new facility that the team is going to be building on the east side. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the guy who bought the team is Dr. Bill McGuire. You guys may know him from United Healthcare days. He was the CEO. He basically took United Healthcare from a very, very small local thing to one of the biggest insurance companies in the world. He is a local philanthropist. He's very involved in many things throughout the Twin Cities. And when he purchased the club, one of the main things he wanted to do was invest in the community, not just with the club on the field, but off the field as well. An opportunity arose with the Bielenberg Sports Center out in Woodbury to become a part of that and basically expand on it and make a practice facility exclusive just for us. And he is investing, I don't remember the exact figure, it's over $1 million to help expand this center. And what you're going to end up with is a full indoor size field, so the team can practice year-round in any weather conditions, an exclusive outdoor field just for us. And those two things combined with, a training center, a weight room, all that kind of stuff that you see with training facilities for sport teams, this is going to be one of, if not the premier practice facility for soccer in the Midwest, if not the country. It's going to be an absolutely gorgeous venue for people to visit and come watch the team train. And that's a huge thing for us, not just, again, as an on-the-field thing, but to get into another community in the Twin Cities area.
Yeah, the Bielenberg Center as a whole is undergoing almost a $22 million expansion. As you mentioned, it's $1.4 million just for the soccer-specific training center. So that's going to be awesome for that. And with the announcement of a new reserve league team that'll be playing also in Woodbury, it's just got to be exciting for you to be a part of this and really watch it grow and to see the, like you mentioned, the expansion. The team plays some of the games in Blaine, some of them at the Metrodome. Your guys' offices are located south here, so you're kind of just putting your stamp all over the Twin Cities area. Yeah,
and that was, again, one of the key things that we wanted to happen. This time last year, a little bit earlier, October of last year, fans of the team, Minnesota Stars, didn't even know if there was going to be a club in this area. And now you've gone from not knowing if there's a club to there's a very secure club with secure ownership, with one of the best training facilities in the country, with a reserves team that is going to be able to take local players in this area and grow them and teach them pro soccer and help them through this maturation process from an amateur player to potentially a pro player. And this is going to give us the ability to have true homegrown talent on our team. So when fans come out to games, that starting lineup's got a few true Minnesotans in it.
Jason, I don't know about you, but just thinking about it, with National Sports Center up in Blaine and the size that is, it's just, to me, it's amazing that it took, like you mentioned, it's been this growing process. It's amazing that it's almost taken this long for a team to really grab hold in the soccer community.
Well, I think ownership, and it's true in any sport, but when you have a motivated owner, motivated for the right reasons and for the long term, you're going to see significant changes very quickly. And the investments they've made, and I think the rebranding to MUFC have all been amazing, and they're going to benefit the community and the club for the next several decades.
Yeah, and before we move on, you did mention, you guys did rebrand from that. What was kind of the thought behind rebranding in this nature? And the logo that you guys have, it's unique. It's very soccer-centric, if I can say so myself, compared to stuff that you'd see, early MLS, and some of them that were very cartoonish, where this one, you're like, oh, that is a soccer logo.
Yeah, so everything I'm going to say is kind of after the fact. I wasn't, all this kind of happened before I joined the club. But the idea of the Minnesota Stars, so before that it was the Thunder, and before that it was the Strikers, and then for people who've been around for a long time, it was the Minnesota Kicks, who played at the Met Center. So when you'd go up to somebody and say, what's the first thing comes to mind when somebody says Minnesota Stars? Everybody says, oh, it's that hockey team.
Yeah, the North Stars.
Yeah, they went down to Dallas like 15 years ago. So the name had no real affiliation with soccer, and it had only been around for a couple of years, so it really didn't have any affiliation with anybody in this area. So when you've got new ownership coming in, it's an opportunity for a fresh start, just in general. I think they looked at the history of soccer in this area. They looked at the Twin Cities, and there was this sort of idea, this concept of uniting all of that, uniting the history, uniting the Twin Cities together, uniting all these communities with the Woodbury deal and the reserves team and playing up in Blaine. And so the name United, which kind of has some soccer connotations anyway, just kind of fit.
Yeah.
In terms of the shield, I think we ended up with one of the best logos in sports.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I like
I'm a little bit biased, but people who look at that logo really say, that's a strong representation. And it was designed by Zeus Jones, local ad agency here.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Zeus Jones, they do General Mills. Who else do they do? Some of the biggest companies in the world, Zeus Jones is an ad agency for. So they designed our logo, our marks, and I think they knocked it out of the park. One of the small additions that we've just recently made is in an effort to, I'm glad that you see that it's soccer-centric.
Yeah, very.
But for people who aren't familiar with soccer still in this country, it's hard to look at that logo and see soccer. So we've come up with a tagline, "We are soccer," that you're going to see attached to a lot of things. And, it's not just as a way to identify us as a soccer club, but we want people, when they think of soccer in this area, to think of us. So next year with the World Cup, we're going to be doing all kinds of cool stuff next summer with the World Cup. And we want people to think of us as the first place to come to, the first resource for soccer and information on the World Cup. So it's kind of been this, evolution over the last year. But I think, the team, in terms of a branding, has started off really, really strong.
Very cool. Well, the team had success. They won the Soccer Bowl in 2011, lost it the next year, and this year the New York Cosmos, you mentioned, then they came back and won again. We want to wish the Minnesota United FC a lot of success moving forward, and especially like you said, people go to you guys next year instead of go down to Brazil because it's unsafe and they might.
Yeah. I watch from your couch. That's the smart move.
Or go to Brit's Pub.
Go to Brit's Pub. We'll be having watch parties there. Some other bigger things planned that I don't want to leak out just quite yet. But if you're a soccer fan in Minnesota, you're gonna have a lot of fun next summer.
Cool. Well, if you haven't seen them, go to MN United FC. Check them all out. Go to their games next year. We're going to diverge a little bit. We got one topic before we get back to soccer, and this one involves golf, and it could have some connotations in every sport that you see, but they took another stand against video evidence Tuesday by announcing a new decision that would not penalize a player whose ball moves at rest if the movement is only detected by enhanced pictures. You saw this year with Tiger Woods, people calling in, people able to watch it on HD, and it adds that element to the game that nobody really ever expected. These players are there, they're calling fouls regular or whatever on themselves, but then you get people calling in that watch it on TV, and I've always thought it was kind of BS. It's kind of like baseball, let it be as it is. Jason, what are your thoughts on this, that they're taking that aspect out of it and leaving it more in the hands of the people that are actually there on the course?
Well, I think it's solely reactionary to what happened to Woods with that penalty stroke. And I think that's fairly safe to say. I'm kind of indifferent. I think it blows my mind in any sport, and I get the history of golf and why they're like, well, it's players' honor and that sort of thing, that system. But, that made a lot of sense in the 1930s when we were playing for a few $100s. Now you're paying for $10 million, right, over the course of the season. At that point in time, you can afford to be paying someone to follow who's shooting and make sure rules are enforced like every other sport does with referees. So the video evidence, I think, is terrible because you're going to, if they allowed it, it's a slippery slope that you're never going to get out of. But not having some sort of officiating inside of an entire major sport is a little bit odd to me.
Yeah. The whole video evidence thing, like you mentioned, so in a hockey game where, there's a penalty or they think that it slips past the goal line, somebody could call that in soccer, somebody trips themselves and they get the yellow flag, oh God, I've been shot, oh no. Being a soccer guy by nature, but a sports fan, what are your thoughts on this, Brad?
I think this concept of not embracing technology is unbelievable. You're seeing baseball finally come around to it.
Yep.
But if you have the ability to get it right, why not use that ability to get it right? In the World Cup next year, they're going to have goal line technology. Just in the game the other day with USA and Austria. It was just a friendly, so there's no real consequences there. But the U.S. had a goal disallowed, but the ball crossed the line. And if that goal line technology had been there, that would have changed the whole game. So if you have the chance to get it right with technology, why not use it? And if you're going to call in as a viewer for a golf tournament, to find something else to do with your life. Like, I mean, it's just you've reached new levels of moronic behavior.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with you on that one. That technology, especially with baseball, as long as it doesn't keep everything going and dragging on, they're going to be very quick about it. Like you mentioned, the one thing it just drives me nuts is Joe Schmo sitting on his couch. Well, Tiger's ball rotated. Blah, blah, blah. It's just like you said, get a life. But we'll it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And like you mentioned, the goal line technology at the World Cup next year will be extremely interesting. Let's move on to Major League Soccer. Earlier they announced a new team in New York City. So New York is going to have 3 professional soccer teams. It's the only one that's they're going to have 2 MLS franchises plus an NASL. So fans are going to get their soccer fill. Orlando City also just got named as a team. They've got a super rich owner, and it's interesting to see this. That you mentioned the growth of soccer, Jason. That you've got however many teams in a small footprint like England, and now the U.S. It's really growing, and USL Pro is gaining 2 teams. NASL is going to have 5, MLS, etc. Do you guys think, and I know, Brad, you kind of touched on this, but can the U.S. sustain growth of this nature in pro soccer?
I think it's going to come down to how well teams operate. I think the model that you guys are running at MUFC is the exact right one. I mean, you're building around the community, you're building a fan base, and you're putting out a phenomenal product. And that's just generally true. The support, the fan base in the U.S. is definitely there, and it can grow, and it can support 200 clubs across multiple divisions if they're being run right and if you are building that fan base.
Yeah, it just it seems like everybody who plays FIFA, you should have about a bazillion fans in the entire world with all this. So, Brad, like I said, New York City, Miami, LeBron and David Beckham want to put a team there. What are your thoughts? I know that you said that you think it can keep growing as long as you do it right.
Well, look at Seattle. So Seattle used to be in our league when it was the Thunder. They went and joined the MLS, and they're averaging over 40,000 fans a game, and it's growing every year. Vancouver and Portland both used to be in our league. They left to join MLS. They're drawing huge crowds. Sporting KC, when they joined, they were getting nobody. In the last World Cup, they did a lot of watch parties. They kind of became soccer-centric for that community, and now they're selling out every game. I think the opportunity is there. I think a lot of it is education, and I think a lot of it is showing people the soccer culture in this country. People just don't know yet, and it's growing. In terms of Orlando, they've been on the cusp for years. That's I don't know much about their club other than I know it's been gaining in popularity. That's a great city for a club to be in, and I think it's a great move by MLS to snatch them.
And interesting thing about this, I think they will be the first team in MLS history to be primarily purple. So something
that is
to look
a poor
forward to.
choice. That's a poor choice.
Well, we see that purple is extremely successful in these parts. Anyway, moving on. And as we mentioned, FIFA with the World Cup, they have extended a partnership with Adidas that will now extend 60 years in length. So Nike's trying to get in there. It's a huge rivalry in the soccer world. You see Adidas, you see Nike, and there's some other ones, but it's a huge commercial partnership, one of sports' oldest, for 60 years. They're signed through 2030, FIFA and Adidas. What are your thoughts on this, Brad?
That's actually the first time I'm saying that. Listen, great for Adidas. It's interesting to me that soccer's different than other leagues in that every team has their own deal with an outfitter. Major League Baseball and NFL and whatever, all these leagues, it's a league deal.
Yeah.
But some of these clubs are so much bigger than the league itself. You look at a Manchester United, they're the only soccer club in the world that is on the New York Stock Exchange. because they're a brand that's bigger than English Premier League, that's bigger than Barclays. I think any time these outfitters can make those kind of deals, I think it's great for the fans. I think having the cool gear that, that's high quality that these companies make is cool. I don't know, 60 years. That's...
Oh, it'll be 60 years when it's done. But
Right.
It's through 2030. It's
Right.
still like another 18.
Yeah, I mean, that's a unbelievable partnership.
Yeah. It's it's interesting. It's tough to drop one of those, if you're Adidas. Like how can you walk away when you have that level of length? You know what I mean?
Not to mention what's going to happen in the next 10 years. That's what blows my mind when you see these huge long-term deals is, the environment, the culture could be totally different a decade from now.
Yeah.
So, is that going to continue to be a symbiotic relationship, or is it going to be a thing where one person is getting far end, better end of the stick than the other?
And one of the main parts of the whole agreement is the soccer ball. Like you mentioned, it's going to have the goal line technology. Is that embedded in the ball, or how does that?
I don't know how the technology works. I imagine it's some sort of technology in the ball, and probably something in the goalposts. Imagine like when you go shopping and you walk out with a T-shirt. Yeah. I imagine it's going to be something similar to that, only millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be super precise.
And then they've got Germany, they've got Spain and Argentina in their arsenal, so they've got quite a bit. Before we end, we're talking about kits. You guys have Admiral, they've been around since 1914,
Yep.
Also Manchester.
Yep.
How does it come about that a team from middle of nowhere, USA, gets hooked up with Admiral? Like
Admiral's actually been a really good partner with a lot of quote-unquote lower division teams. They've got a couple other teams in our league. They do a great job. We obviously sent them some pretty crazy designs. If you go on our website and look at our actual kit, it's a very unusual looking kit. A lot of people really like it. I think it looks fantastic, but it's a different look than most jerseys. And Admiral did a really good job being a partner and getting those set up for us. Again, I mean, on a very, very short turnaround. I know the Stars used Admiral, but when you come in with a new brand, you're talking new colors, new markings, all this new stuff that has to be taken into account. And it was great to work with them to get all that set up for the fans.
Very cool. Well, like I said, we want to wish Minnesota United FC all the best of luck next year, 2014. Follow them on Twitter at MNUnitedFC and online MNUnitedFC.com. I believe season tickets are on sale now already.
Yep. You can call 763-4-SOCCER to place your deposit for 2014 season tickets. And in terms of video, you can follow us on YouTube. We're going to have content almost on a daily basis throughout the off season. So lots of cool stuff coming up.
Cool. Get your soccer fix. And like he said, there's going to be some announcements about some viewing parties for the FIFA World Cup. But once again, everybody, thanks for watching. Check us out on Twitter at SB Now, online at sportsbusinessnow.com. We won't be joining you next week, so enjoy that turkey for Thanksgiving. So until we see you again, take care.
SBN, Sports Business Now.